May 6, 2010. Hounslow, West London. In a modest brick house near Heathrow Airport, a 32-year-old man sat at his bedroom desk, running custom trading software on a basic computer. Within minutes, the U.S. stock market would plunge nearly 1,000 points, wiping out almost $1 trillion before snapping back. Regulators would later trace part of the chaos back to that single laptop. This is the story of how one trader crashed the global market and got away with it. Navinder Singh Sarao didn't look like a market mover. He wasn't a hedge fund manager in a Manhattan skyscraper or a Silicon Valley coder surrounded by monitors. He lived with his parents in Hounslow, a quiet suburb of West London, not far from the Heathrow flight paths. His bedroom was his office. His tools? A few aging monitors, a second-hand keyboard, and his own custom software. But from that room, Navinder traded tens of millions of dollars every day. He wasn't your average day trader. He wasn't even socially average. Friends described him as reclusive, intensely focused, and awkward in conversation. He rarely went out. He didn't drink, didn't party, didn't care about luxury. What he cared about obsessively was the market. Not the politics of it or the big picture, but the patterns. The microsecond movements that told him where money would go next. He could see trends forming before they happened, not because he guessed, because he understood how the system worked and where it was weak. Navinder taught himself to code and began designing tools to help him stay one step ahead. Unlike most traders, who relied on commercial software, he created his own algorithms. He refined them constantly, adjusting to the pace of the market. He wasn't using some black market exploit or illegal hack. His advantage was speed and the psychology of other traders. He treated the markets like a game of chess played at light speed. Every move had a counter, every price shift had a cause. And if you could anticipate it, you could exploit it again and again. By the time he was 30, he had quietly earned over $40 million. No office, no staff, just a laptop and timing. But that same obsession with edge, with getting ahead of the system, led him down a darker path, one that would turn his trading from clever to criminal. Because while Navinder didn't use violence or deception in the traditional sense, he did something else. He spoofed the market and in doing so, triggered one of the most chaotic crashes in financial history. Navinder Singh Sarao didn't crash the market with a virus or a cyber attack. He didn't steal data or breach servers. What he did was much simpler and far more dangerous. He used a technique called spoofing. Spoofing is the digital version of bluffing. A trader places large orders with no intention of actually executing them. The goal isn't to buy or sell, it's to trick other traders into reacting. In milliseconds, computers on the other end of the market adjust their positions, believing that demand is rising or falling. Once prices shift, the spoofer cancels the fake orders and profits from the short-term move. It's fast, invisible to the human eye, and devastatingly effective in an automated market. Navinder perfected this technique. Using custom-built software, he placed massive sell orders just above market price, creating the illusion that a flood of sellers was about to hit. Then, just before the orders could be filled, his program canceled them. This caused other algorithms to panic and sell, driving prices down. Once prices fell, he bought low, then reversed the process with fake buy orders to drive prices back up. He made money from the difference, over and over again, dozens of times a day. His preferred battleground was the E-mini S and P500 futures, one of the most liquid and influential contracts in the global market. When the E-mini moves, the entire stock market feels it. And when spoofed at volume, it can set off a chain reaction of buying or selling across thousands of stocks. To regulators and market participants, these fake orders were nearly indistinguishable from real ones. They were placed and canceled so quickly that the only sign of manipulation was in the pattern and no one was watching for it. From his bedroom in Hounslow, Navinder was pushing billions of dollars through the system, shaping the market with phantom signals. Not once, not twice, but constantly. He wasn't the only trader spoofing, but he was among the best. And unlike others, he didn't just use the tactic to gain a slight edge. He scaled it, weaponized it, turned it into his main strategy. And on one afternoon in May 2010, that strategy would push the system too far and help bring global markets to their knees. May 6, 2010 began like any other volatile day on Wall Street. There were already warning signs in the air, concerns over Greek debt, fears of contagion in Europe, jittery headlines. The market was tense, but functioning. Then, around 2:32 p.m., something snapped. On the trading floors in New York and Chicago, screens lit up with red. The Dow Jones Industrial Average began to drop slowly at first, then violently. Within minutes, it plunged more than 600 points, dragging the S&P 500 and Nasdaq with it. Entire companies lost billions in seconds. Traders panicked. Analysts froze. Automated systems kicked in, trying to make sense of the chaos, but they only added fuel to the fire. Across the Atlantic, in a quiet room in Hounslow, Navinder Singh Sarao was at his desk doing what he always did. He was spoofing. That afternoon, Sarao had layered his usual barrage of phantom sell orders into the E-mini S&P 500 futures market using his custom-built software. But this time, the scale was massive. His spoofing created the illusion of overwhelming downward pressure. High-frequency trading bots, the ultra-fast algorithms that dominate modern markets, responded instantly. They began selling, hedging, and dumping risk. Other algorithms saw their moves and copied them. Liquidity vanished. Buyers disappeared. Prices fell off a cliff. In just 5 minutes, the Dow dropped 998 points, nearly 9% of its total value. Around $1 trillion in market value was erased. Stocks for major companies like Procter & Gamble and Accenture briefly traded for pennies. At one point, Apple's market cap dropped by over $20 billion in seconds. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the crash reversed. Markets began to stabilize around 2:45 p.m. Some algorithms shut down, others recalibrated. Human traders, now realizing what had happened, began to step back in. By the end of the day, most of the losses had been recovered, but the psychological damage was done. For the first time in history, global markets had collapsed and rebounded within 30 minutes, and no one understood why. It wasn't just a crash. It was a ghost crash, a digital panic, with no clear trigger and no warning. At first, analysts blamed a fat finger, a typo by a trader who may have accidentally entered a billion-dollar order. But the data didn't match. As regulators combed through trading logs, a strange pattern emerged. One trader had placed hundreds of millions in sell orders that were never executed and canceled them just milliseconds before execution. That trail led to Hounslow. Navinder hadn't caused the entire crash. The markets were already under stress. But he was a catalyst, the spark that turned tension into collapse. His spoofing overloaded a fragile system, triggering a cascade of automated reactions. He had no office, no team, just code, timing, and a deep understanding of how the system reacts to fear. One man, one desk, $1 trillion crash. It didn't make sense at first. When investigators followed the trail back to Navinder Singh Sarao, they expected to find a hedge fund, a rogue team of quants, or a sophisticated financial operation backed by dark money. What they found instead was a bedroom in a modest brick house in Hounslow, West London. Sarao didn't even have high-speed institutional internet. He traded through standard connections, using off-the-shelf market data feeds. His setup was primitive by Wall Street standards. A few aging monitors, a cheap keyboard, and a homemade ergonomic chair rigged with bungee cords. He had taught himself to code and built custom software tailored to his reflexes, not some complex AI system, just personalized tools that let him move faster than the market around him. That's what made the revelation so shocking. One man, using nothing more than a laptop and timing, had helped push the US stock market into one of the most violent collapses in modern history. In total, his trades that day earned him just $879,000 a fortune for most people, but pocket change in a trillion-dollar system. And yet, the ripples from his actions were global. When the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, analyzed the crash. They found that Sarao's spoofing orders made up a significant portion of all activity in the E-mini S&P 500 futures market that afternoon. His algorithms had created a feedback loop that tricked other automated systems into panicking. The chain reaction wasn't intentional. He hadn't set out to crash the market. He was simply doing what he always did, exploiting micro-movements for profit. But this time, the system broke. And the most unsettling part? It didn't take much. Just a single trader with the right strategy, the right timing, and a market built on fragile, algorithmic trust. Sarao was never flashy. He didn't own luxury cars or throw lavish parties. He walked to the same takeout spots near his house, wore the same faded jackets, and kept to himself. He spent more time thinking about latency speeds than spending money. When authorities finally arrested him in 2015, they found him walking near his home, wearing jogging clothes and carrying a backpack. He was cooperative, almost confused by the attention, because in his mind, he hadn't crashed the market. He had just outplayed it and exposed how easily it could fall apart. For 5 years after the flash crash, Navinder Singh Sarao continued trading, quietly, obsessively, and without attracting further attention. Regulators had combed through billions of trades looking for culprits. The financial world had moved on, and Sarao had returned to doing what he always did, watching numbers and pressing keys. But behind the scenes, the U.S. Department of Justice and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission were closing in. After analyzing years of order logs, investigators identified a pattern: thousands of spoofed trades placed and canceled within milliseconds. The fingerprint was unmistakable. One trader, one machine. One bedroom in Hounslow. In the 20th of April 15, nearly 5 years after the flash crash, British police arrested Navinder on behalf of the U.S. government. He was charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, commodities fraud, and market manipulation. The news made headlines around the world. Flash, crash, trader arrested in London. But the man in handcuffs didn't fit the image. He wasn't rich, arrogant, or defiant. He was thin, soft-spoken, and bewildered. In court, he often mumbled. He had no legal team of elite defenders. At one point, he told the judge that he didn't fully understand what spoofing was, or why it was illegal. Navinder insisted that he never intended to crash the market. He wasn't trying to destroy anything. He was just trying to win. The market was fast, and so he made himself faster. The other players were aggressive, so he learned to outmaneuver them. It wasn't sabotage. It was survival. Prosecutors saw it differently. They described Sarao as a market manipulator, someone who abused trust in the system to personally profit while injecting chaos into the financial ecosystem. And technically, they were right. But it was hard to look at Navinder and see a villain. The man who helped trigger a $1 trillion market crash wasn't hiding in a vault or a penthouse. He was walking to court with his backpack, wondering how everything had gone so far. By the time Navinder Singh Sarao stood trial, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The trading records were airtight. The spoofing pattern was undeniable. The U.S. Justice Department was prepared to pursue a decades-long sentence. And yet, he walked away. Not entirely free, but close enough to shock the financial world. After his 2015 arrest, Sarao agreed to cooperate with investigators. What he offered wasn't just an apology, it was a masterclass in how the market really works. He gave prosecutors deep insights into spoofing strategies, high-frequency trading vulnerabilities, and how easily algorithms could be manipulated by a single, fast-acting trader. He dissected the logic of predatory bots, mapped out how latency arbitrage could create false market signals, and detailed how spoofing strategies slipped through regulatory cracks. In many ways, Sarao educated the very system that was trying to prosecute him. His cooperation was described as extraordinary. U.S. authorities admitted that his help was instrumental in shaping future market oversight. He didn't just confess, he showed them how the engine broke. In doing so, he turned from suspect to teacher. And that changed everything. In 2020, after years of extradition hearings, psychiatric evaluations, and legal delays, A U.S. judge sentenced Sario to time served. No prison, no lifetime ban from trading, just a warning and a thank you. The judge cited his autism spectrum diagnosis, profound social isolation, and exceptional cooperation as reasons for leniency. Many were stunned. Some were furious. How could someone who played a role in a trillion-dollar meltdown avoid jail? But prosecutors stood by their decision. Sario, they argued, didn't act with malicious intent. He didn't try to destroy the market. He simply saw how the game worked and learned to beat it. In the end, the man who helped ignite the flash crash returned to near obscurity. No book deal, no media tour, just silence. But the system never really answered the larger question. How was one man, a laptop, and a homemade script enough to shake the entire financial world? Navinder wasn't a genius hacker or a Wall Street mastermind. He wasn't even trying to break the system. He was playing the game, and he played it better than anyone else. And when the system broke under his fingertips, it wasn't a breach. It was a revelation. Navinder Singh Sarao didn't build a criminal empire. He didn't wear a suit, lead a firm, or crash through firewalls. He sat at a desk, watched market flows, and wrote code that talked faster than anyone else's could. And that was all it took. He didn't break the stock market. He revealed that it was already broken, a system running on speed, reaction, and layers of automated trust that no one fully understood. In a financial world dominated by machines, he showed that even a single human, working from a modest home in West London, could shake the global economy without ever leaving his room. Sario wasn't a Wall Street insider or a digital criminal mastermind. He was a reminder that complexity doesn't equal stability, that what looks efficient can be fragile, and that sometimes all it takes is one person pressing the right buttons at the wrong time. What happened on May 6, 2010 wasn't just a glitch, it was a warning. One man spoofed his way into a trillion-dollar crash and walked away. And the real question is, if it could happen once, how many times have we just been lucky?